With the ever-increasing amount of HDMI compatible devices in the world, it's becoming more and more common for people to not have enough HDMI inputs on their TV or soundbar for all of the devices that they own. Today we'll be taking a look at the JTech Digital 3-way HDMI switch as a potential solution to that problem. Okay, so to start off, I'm just going to explain what you get in the box with this device. You get the switch itself, which is made out of a nice durable feeling, at least, metal. You get the power port, which is a DC 5 volt, I believe. Yes, it's a DC 5 volt. And you get a very cheap remote to control it via infrared. So, moving on from that, you now know you get three basic components, and the main thing in this review is how they perform. When it comes to performance, the main criteria are: does it do full HD 1080p? And does the signal appear to get weak in the device? And the overall user experience. Well, I'm going to start off by saying the device does pass through full 1080p HD, and it claims to be capable of 3D resolutions. Since we don't have any 3D displays around our studio, we weren't able to test that, nor could we test 4K video, but it does not list itself as being 4K compatible. So if you're using 4K resolutions, I highly recommend getting a different device that states right in the description or on the box that it can pass through 4K resolution. So the device itself is a three-way switch, so it has three HDMI inputs along the back. Next to those is the DC 5 volt input, and on the side is the HDMI out. So what does the device do? Well, in the HDMI out, you put one HDMI cable that runs to one input on your TV. Pretty simple. And then the three devices you plug into here, it uses the device as sort of the TV input system, so you can choose which device actually goes toward the TV and which signals are just ignored. In using the device, I found that the HDMI switch itself, the metal box in my hand, is the main component, and it actually has a very nice rugged feel to it. It's made out of a nice black metal material, and it feels professional, actually. On the other hand, it's branded excessively with JTech Digital logos all over it on the top, and it says HDMI switch in big, bulky letters on the front, and I find that a little bit annoying, but if you don't really care about the looks of the device and you just care about functionality, it's still a winner. Along the front, you'll also find a select button to switch inputs, and three LED indicators, L1, L2, and L3. While I don't know what the L stands for exactly, possibly line, the 1, 2, and 3 do represent the different inputs on the back, which are also labeled on the back below each HDMI input. When you're on a certain input, the LED will light up, letting you know that you're on that. The select button will transition through them numerically, so it goes from 1 to 2 and 2 to 3, and then 3 to 1. The infrared sensor is also located on the front, and this became a source of some problems. Many remotes now use 2.4 gigahertz or a much, much stronger infrared receiver and transmission, than this device does. Since this comes in between $20 to $30, at least on some stores, I didn't expect a fantastic product overall. In one way, I was wrong. The HDMI switch is pretty good. It does the job at full HD 1080p without any delays in sound or video, but the remote itself is really, really bad. The remote can only operate within about 10 feet of the device if the lights are on in your house, because infrared gets a lot of interference from any lights being on. That's not a huge problem since there is a manual button on the device that you could stand up and go press, but it is nice having a remote so you don't have to get up to do that, or you can just get a little closer as opposed to walking over to it. Another downside of the infrared system is it requires a direct line of sight. If you're planning to put the device in a cabinet or something, or even behind one of those screens that allows remote signals to pass through, you're going to encounter issues. Infrared will have a slightly harder time getting through that fabric, and it stands no chance of getting through a solid door. In the end, I wouldn't recommend using the remote to begin with unless you don't really care that much about quality, because it's very cheap, it weighs nothing, and the front is actually just a sticker that was applied. But speaking of the remote, it does have 3 buttons, 1, 2, and 3, to change the input directly to those, and up and down arrow keys to switch back and forth between them without choosing a certain input. That's pretty cool, but the remote isn't exactly necessary, so if you're like me and you lose the remote to a lot of things, which, since I'm disorganized, it happens more often than you would think, then you can still operate it on the actual device, which is a nice touch. As far as the power cord goes, it's your standard power adapter. It doesn't have anything special. It fits into the American-style outlet with no ground plug, so you won't have any problem with extension cords of any type. That said, it's not actually necessary from what I found. When we plugged this into our home theater system, it operated without a power source. I don't know if it's getting power from the HDMI or it just requires... It might have an internal battery of some sort, but we didn't need the power adapter, which makes it another convenient option if you need to place it somewhere. One of the selling points of this device is actually the fact that you can control it manually. On many devices, it'll automatically switch inputs based off of what it thinks you want to watch. But if you leave multiple devices on you want to switch, then they get confused. Not the case with the JTech digital system. This one, you can have all the devices on and switch to whatever input you want, and it won't give you any hesitation. That said, if you do have one device and you turn it on, it'll automatically switch to the one that just turned on. That's sort of a convenient thing, but you can always switch it back. One of the issues that I did find with this device, however, is some older HDMI versions, like on our old Blu-ray player, don't transmit that they're on unless the device is, in fact, on. So that meant we couldn't switch the input of the device unless the device was actually turned on, fully, or in the process of turning on. Again, this isn't a huge problem, but it's something that you might want to consider if you're easily frustrated when something doesn't work exactly the way you want, and it also wouldn't show you that the device is still plugged into the box, even though the device isn't powered on. Again, that's a really picky thing. Personally, it hasn't been an issue. We just turn the device on and then it'll switch automatically to it, which is pretty cool. So yeah, that brings us to the conclusion, I guess. I mean, the device itself, the HDMI Switch, which is the metal box, is of a pretty good quality. It does the job at full HD, which is very important if you have a nice home theater setup. And overall, it doesn't feel cheap. It does the job properly, and that's what matters. As long as it can do the job properly, then it's worth getting. That said, if you are looking for something with less of the company name on it, a name brand item might be the best way to go, especially if you're planning to do 4K or even multiple channel surround sound. We haven't tested this for more than 2.1, which I will say it works for 2.1 channel surround sound. Presumably it will work for 5.1, but we have not tested that. But in conclusion, the remote feels really bad. The power adapter is standard and nothing special, but if you need it, then it works, and most times you don't need it. And the device that we're talking about mainly is the JTech Digital Premium Quality 3D HDMI Switch 3x1, that's the full name, available online for about $20 to $30. And it works, it does the job, and so far we haven't found any problems with it. So yeah, if you're looking for a solution to not having enough HDMI ports and you want to make one port function as 3, this is definitely an item to consider. Check out the link in the description to go to the product page on Amazon, and consider buying it. We don't get any kickback or anything, but if you need something like this, then it's definitely something to consider. So as usual, guys, thanks for watching Teen Tech Daily. We hope to see you back on our channel when we start putting out more videos. We're hoping to get a few videos per week going. So like this video if you liked it, dislike it if you thought it sucked, and leave a comment below letting us know what you think of the JTech Digital Premium Quality 3D HDMI Switch 3x1, or for short, just the JTech HDMI Switch. Thanks for watching, guys.